I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson.
And joining us on the line right now, Tom Bevan from Real Clear Politics, a man who, you need to look at this website every morning if you care about politics, because it is a nice amalgam, a nice compendium of things having to do with what's going on in the political world. Good morning to you, Tom.
Hey, guys. How are you?
All right. So, listen, we want to talk polls this morning. And, look, Donald Trump's had sort of not your regular, run-of-the-mill vanilla campaign. He's had sort of a slash-and-burn campaign. He's gone after everybody, including many other Republicans. But he's doing well in the poll numbers. Tell us about that.
He is. I mean, we had 3 polls come out over the weekend. One national poll from CNN showed Trump on top, and that is in line with the other polls that have come out recently. He's now leading in all the national polls except for one that's in our average, and so he's up to 18%. He's got about a 4.5 point lead over all of his competitors. We had a Marist poll come out in New Hampshire showing him on top there. It's the first time Jeb Bush hasn't been in the lead in New Hampshire. And then a poll in Iowa, also from Marist, showing him closing in on Scott Walker. Scott Walker still has a lead in Iowa, 2 points in the Marist poll. It's still about 7 points overall in our average, but he's moving. He's moving across the board.
Well, what is he tapping into? Because obviously, after the McCain thing, I thought his numbers would go down a bit, but they really have not.
No, and I think, look, Donald Trump is definitely playing by a different game. I think any other candidate who would not have been able to get away with saying McCain wasn't a war hero would have affected them. They would have taken a hit. I mean, look, the base is angry. Republicans are angry. They think Washington is broken. They look at a lot of these candidates and think that they, are creatures of Washington, at least some of them, and Donald Trump is the outsider. He's shaking things up. He's speaking the truth. He's speaking his mind, et cetera, et cetera. And so that appeals to some people. I mean, remember, this is only possible because there are 16 candidates in this race. Donald Trump is only at 15, 18% in these polls. So that might be his ceiling. And as this race, as people thin out, it'll be interesting to see whether Trump is able to get, 20, 22, 25% and continue to rise, or whether he's going to sort of hit a ceiling early and that'll be it.
Tom Bevan, are you tracking any polls that show what would happen if Donald Trump ran as a third party?
No, we haven't seen those yet. He has threatened to potentially, and he sort of walked that back over the weekend, but I don't think it would be good. I mean, if you look at some of these polls, the Quinnipiac swing state polls that came out last week showing, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Scott Walker all leading Hillary Clinton in Virginia and I think Iowa and maybe Florida or Ohio, but not by much, by 2-3 points. And just imagine what those numbers would look like if Donald Trump was in at a third party. Again, it wouldn't take much, 3%, 5% of disaffected folks, probably mostly coming from the GOP side, and suddenly, Hillary Clinton's back ahead in all those states. So we haven't seen a ton of polling as with Trump as third party, but if you look at these numbers, you can imagine what it would look like, and it would not be good for the Republicans.
Tom Bevan, Brian Wilson just mentioned that Real Clear Politics is a really good site as an amalgam or a compendium of lots of different articles. And I'm looking right now. You just mentioned those Hillary Clinton polls in those 3 states. You've got 2 articles linked right now on Real Clear Politics. One, the headline is "Clinton's Worst Fears Are Coming True," and the very next one says, "Ignore all those polls that say Clinton is doomed." So what is the truth here?
Well, listen, I mean, one of the things that we like to do, obviously, is provide sort of the perspective from both sides. And clearly, the left is looking at Clinton's polls. And while I think some people privately are nervous when they see her favorability ratings sort of tanking as they have been, and, this constant story about the emails just, dogging her, look, they think she's still in strong position. I mean, they still think, they look at the Republican field and think that Clinton is the prohibitive front runner. Republicans look at this from the other side and think that she's beatable. I mean, she's got a lot of baggage. Her favorability ratings are down. She's down in some of these swing states. So you've got these 2 different perspectives, and that's what we're playing up on the site.
Yeah, I mean, the favorabilities, talk about that, because that's, I tell you what, if any other candidate had those kind of unfavorables, you'd have to almost discount them, but not Hillary.
Well, Brian, I mean, this is going to be a really interesting test if she ends up being the nominee, and I think there might even still be a little bit of a question mark about that.
Really?
But if she ends up being the nominee, she's got two really interesting things going for her. One is that she's viewed as a very strong person, very strong leader. That's a good quality. It's a quality that people like. But she's also viewed as being untrustworthy, and that is a quality that voters hate. And we've elected presidents in the past who we didn't feel were trustworthy, but in both of those instances that come to mind, Nixon and Clinton, they were sitting presidents. They were incumbents, and people were able to judge, okay, maybe I don't trust him. I don't trust him to babysit my daughter, but I think he's doing a good job, and the economy's fine. So they had something to measure it against as an incumbent. With her, she's not an incumbent, and so it'll be interesting to see if voters will elect someone that they don't trust, put them into the White House for the first time.
Tom Bevan, I got to ask you, since you cover the polls so much and you cover politics, we're 2 weeks away from the first debate, and the polls are factoring into this debate and who gets chosen to be on the stage. I wonder what your take on that is. I mean, the polls, it's so early. It's July, and so much changes. I mean, Rudy Giuliani would have been the nominee if you looked at the July polls back in 2008. He ended up not getting one delegate. Do you think that it's a good idea to focus on polls right now as the litmus test for who gets on the stage for the debate?
Yeah, Larry, I mean, I think you're right. Look, this is tough, and Fox has taken some criticism for this. I mean, I get the idea of trying to limit the debates, okay, and not have 16 people on stage. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Giving them each, 2 minutes to talk about, complex issues like the economy and foreign affairs. So Understand that. On the other hand, the way that they went about it, just arbitrarily saying 10's the number, that's it, that's all we're going to do, instead of maybe having 2 debates with 8 apiece or something along those lines. I mean, you look at these numbers, Rick Perry's at 2%, John Kasich's at 2.2%. Okay, these polls, there's a margin of error. I mean, there's no way you can say that Kasich is ahead of Rick Perry by 0.2%.
Right.
And so the sitting governor of the longest serving governor in the history of the state of Texas may not make the debates, and you're going to have these other folks being relegated to a different time slot. I think it's tough. I understand what Fox was trying to do. I'm just not sure they executed properly, and we'll see. Maybe they'll amend here in the final days when they come out with their last round of polls and see what they're going to do.
But as it stands right now, do I have this correct? The first debate's on August 6th, I believe, and that means that the final decision might not be made until August 4th about who's on that stage?
That's right. And Fox has said, look, Fox has said they're going to release the final poll, and they're going to take an average. They're not using our average. They're going to use their own, and I think they're going to do that, so that they have some flexibility in which polls they decide to use, which polls they don't. And they're going to make a final decision, I think a day or two before the debate is all it's going to be.
So there's a lot of people who are going to be on the bubble who have to plan as if they're going to be or maybe not be on the debate.
Well, they are going to have this other forum that's going to take
right.
place. They moved it up to 5 p.m. and they shortened it to an hour from 90 minutes. So everybody will be around. It's just a matter of who's going to be on the big stage versus the little stage.
All right.
Like the grown-ups table and the kids table
at
at Thanksgiving.
That's
I remember
right.
that. All right,
Tom
what's
interesting about that is that those folks who are in the forum, there are going to be less folks on stage, so they'll have more time to really make an impression. Somebody like Carly Fiorina could really shine in that environment.
Well, that's a very interesting point,
That's
Tom
a very
Bevan.
interesting
Thank
point.
you for that. And also, thanks for joining us, by the way, Tom Bevan, Real Core Politics.